Hedley, whenever you start one of these investigations, we have a conversation in which I ask you, do you think it can be solved? And you say you do. In this instance, you had a wealth of material, but you also had some things that came to you that you could never have expected at the beginning. Judy Singh was one of those. How did you first hear that she was out there somewhere?
I'd got an email from a woman called Kerry McLean who lives in Ballina, and Kerry and Judy were once really good friends. And Kerry wrote to me some time before we started this podcast to say, you really need to look into the case of Bronwyn Winfield. My friend saw something on the night that Bronwyn disappeared. She thought she saw a body. And, this was a pretty alarming email to get. And I pulled it into my folder and thought about it a lot. And when we started the podcast, I wanted to get in touch with Kerry. So she was one of my early interviews. But I hadn't yet found Judy Singh. She changed her name, and the story also seemed so remarkable that I probably didn't make it as high a priority as I would have done if it, looked like it was all going to join up. Things started to develop through the series, and I realised we really needed to tie this down. Where was Judy Singh, and would she talk to us? Would she verify what Kerry had said Judy saw? Until that point, I was a little bit sceptical about what Kerry had told me, because I thought, well, how do you see inside a dark vehicle at night from a little distance? And then when Judy contacted me and made that point in her email about the interior light being on, it was like a light bulb moment for me, because I realised, of course, you could see something inside a vehicle at night if the interior light is on and you're outside.
And I could see this mummy-like thing, and I hate saying mummy because it is somebody's mummy.
I realised it was a really powerful and important part of this case, one that I wasn't really sure would ever firm up, but Judy was so credible and she got quite emotional while she was talking about it, and we had further conversations. And then I met her. The more I talked to her, the more I was sure that she was telling the truth.
Podcasting is, of course, such a powerful medium because we can tell stories at such length, and because we have an ability to connect in a really intimate way with our audience. They're concentrating while they're listening to the story unfold. Judy's words were really compelling, but this was an instance where we had to show the audience what she was talking about. You came up with a very ambitious idea to visually represent this. I couldn't imagine how we could possibly do that, but we pulled together a team led by our wonderful digital art director, Sean Callanan, and we recreated what Judy had described. That was a huge challenge, wasn't it? And I'd be interested to know what it was like watching that for the first time for you guys.
We also had to find a Ford Falcon XF sedan, and David Murray, our colleague, he searched high and low for a vehicle that we found in Ipswich, and then one of our dear colleagues, Bianca, flew up so that we could wrap her in sheets that I'd brought from home and put her in the back seat. And that got a bit awkward at times because myself and Dave, we had to actually handle Bianca in these sheets on the ground and then pick her up, and neither of us really wanted to do that. We felt a bit awkward, and Bianca said, guys, just pick me up and put me in the bloody back seat, hurry up. And so we did, and it worked out.
Yeah. Maddie, do you recall watching that vision of what the guys had recreated and what you thought?
I found it really jarring. When I first watched it, when you picture something in your head, it's not obviously going to be the same as when it's recreated. So seeing how Judy had remembered it made it seem so real, and it made it seem so possible. So seeing that recreation was, it was kind of that solidifying point for me where I was like, wow.
During the course of this investigation, Andy, you've had to think about and talk about Bronwyn's body. You already had a coronial finding that Bronwyn was deceased, but it's very different to be picturing Bronwyn's body after death and what might have been happening to it. Another example of that was when you and Hedley and a team of amazing people went to a lake where we thought that Bronwyn's remains might have been. And again, you had to think about your beloved sister's body potentially in this dark lake. What's that been like for you as her brother who loved her so much?
It's been very surreal at times to reflect back on that, just be really in the... I think I've known from that first phone call, as I've mentioned to Hedley, and I even said it in the podcast, as soon as I got that phone call for the fate, and he cared for the cheque that already supposedly turned up in the house, from that moment I got that phone call, that was my light bulb moment, if I can, you pardon the pun, but that I've always known that I believe that night was the night that something happened to her, and we just really, really want to, put her to rest properly and have a place to where we can remember and go and see and, and have a plaque or whatever we need. Like, she just can't be out there in, just out there somewhere. It's just not right. It's not fitting for her. So.
What about you, Michelle? This was a woman who you loved a lot. There's a beautiful photograph of her at your wedding, looking gorgeous, holding her young daughter. You look so happy on that day. What's it been like to have to think about what happened to Bronwyn? Because it would be easier to not think about it.
Originally, when it first happened and she disappeared, and I was suspicious myself anyway, as Andy was. We knew that she wouldn't have left those girls. We'd watched her with them. We knew how much she loved them. We knew that she would never have done what she was said to have done. And I think the Judy Singh interview and the recreation of the car and that, I kept thinking to myself, oh my goodness, poor Bronwyn, like that's Bronwyn, like in that sheet. I totally listened to Judy's story as we listened to Judy's story, and we totally believe she saw what she saw. I do not for a minute think that what she said and what she saw is not true. And that thinking that that's what happened to her that was terrible. That was absolutely terrible. It's been really tough.